everybody talks about it, you know, the Strait, and it's weird, but it's cool, you know, that it's the Strait, you know, it's my dad's roping and our family's roping.
If you're a fan of country music, then you already know that George Strait is a living monument. But today, we're not talking about his success, we're talking about something way more personal. His only son, George Bubba Strait Junior. And trust me, things aren't looking good. Now I know, at first glance, you'd think being George Strait's son means you've got the world at your feet, right? But beneath the surface, there's a quiet storm that's been brewing. Today, we'll dive deep into some unexpected struggles that have kept Bubba Strait in the background for years. Let's find out. Finding his own path. When Bubba was in college, he was trying to figure out what he really wanted out of life. He's got this huge shadow hanging over him because, well, his dad just happens to be George Strait, the king of country, the guy who practically breathes Billboard chart toppers. And yet, instead of grabbing a guitar and following those rhinestone-covered footsteps into the country music world, Bubba Strait, the only son of George, looked around and thought, you know what, I'm good. Can you imagine the kind of guts that takes? Like, here's a guy who could have walked into any recording studio in Nashville and gotten the red carpet rolled out just because of his last name. And instead, he picked the dirt, the dust, and the adrenaline of rodeo arenas. Wild, right? You'd think being the son of George Strait would mean you've got it made, right? Fame, fortune, doors flying open wherever you go. But what if I told you things aren't so picture-perfect behind the scenes? In fact, things are looking pretty rough for George Strait's son, and the reasons why might surprise you. So don't go anywhere, because by the end, you might just see the Strait family in a whole new light. Things really started to take shape during his time at Texas A&M University. That place wasn't just a pit stop for him, it became this breeding ground for who he was meant to be. While other kids were pulling all-nighters for exams, or maybe dabbling in student radio, Bubba was out there with his boots in the dirt, sharpening his skills in team roping and horsemanship. And don't get it twisted, music wasn't off the table because he didn't like it. I mean, come on, it literally ran in his blood. But Bubba's heart, it beat to the rhythm of hooves pounding and lassos flying through the air. That cowboy life wasn't just something he admired from afar, it was in his bones. After all, George Strait's cowboy image wasn't some slick PR move, it was real. Ranch life, country values, wide open land, that was their home base. People probably assumed, like of course, that the son of George Strait would be headlining country tours by 25, but Bubba? He had other plans. He didn't want to be a copy-paste version of his dad. He wanted to make his own mark, not in recording booths, but in rodeo arenas. And boy, did he. After graduating from A&M, he didn't waste any time chasing down that dream. He joined the Professional Rodeo Cowboys Association, PRCA, in 2005 and just dove straight into it, full speed. That first year, he was gunning for the National Finals Rodeo, no less. Like, talk about jumping into the deep end. And you know what's really heartwarming? George Strait wasn't just watching from a distance, he was all in, cheering Bubba on with a kind of pride that even all his Grammy Awards probably couldn't touch. Let's talk about some of Bubba's rodeo highlights because they're too cool to gloss over. In 2006, he competed in the Houston Livestock Show and Rodeo, the very same event where his dad had performed as a music headliner so many times before. Full circle moment, right? And in 2004, he also took part in the George Strait Team Roping Classic, an event that, honestly, feels like a tribute to both their passions. Bubba's rodeo career wasn't just a phase, it took him across the country, roping with the best of them. And get this, father and son actually teamed up sometimes. Can you imagine watching George Strait not with a guitar, but with a rope, working side by side with his son? George once said, "Bubba and I have been fortunate to win a couple of buckles together. And that, my friends, is the ultimate." And that statement right there, it says everything. To George, those buckle wins with Bubba, they meant more than any CMA trophy. But here's where things get really interesting. Bubba didn't just carve a unique career path. He also made a conscious choice to stay out of the limelight. And let's be honest, that's rare these days. So many celebrity kids are out here cashing in on their last names, chasing reality shows or influencer deals. Bubba? Not even close. He's like this quiet storm, respected in his world, deeply skilled and completely content with not being the center of attention. Even when he dabbles in music, yes, he's written songs with his dad, he stays behind the curtain, letting the spotlight fall on someone else. It's like he just knows who he is, and he doesn't need applause to feel good about it. And honestly, it probably has a lot to do with how he grew up. Losing his sister, Jennifer, in such a tragic accident when he was still a child, that kind of heartbreak doesn't leave you untouched. His parents, George and Norma, became extra protective after that. Fame had already taken enough from them, so you can't really blame Bubba for valuing his privacy the way he does. Fame, to him, was never something shiny or desirable. It was complicated, and maybe a little painful. So today, he lives a quiet life in the San Antonio area with his own family, far from the flashing cameras and red carpets. Bubba's role in George Strait's music. Most people knew him as a rodeo guy, you know, boots, bulls, the whole deal. But then, out of nowhere, he stunned everybody by showing he could actually write songs too. Not just okay songs, but really heartfelt, moving, honest-to-God country songs. And not just on his own either. He teamed up with his dad, the George Strait, and started writing music together in the late 2000s. Can you even imagine that? One of country music's biggest legends sitting down with his own son to write songs. It's the kind of family bonding that doesn't just stay in the living room, it ends up on the Billboard charts. And let me tell you, when the Twang album dropped in 2009, it wasn't just another George Strait record. It had a whole different kind of magic to it. That was the moment the world got introduced to Bubba Strait, the songwriter. He co-wrote 3 songs on that album. Living for the Night. He's got that something special. And Out of Sight, Out of Mind. I mean, think about that for a second. His first time ever officially writing for his dad, and the album debuts at #1 on the Billboard 200. You'd think he'd been doing this his whole life. But no, this rodeo cowboy just slid into the country music world like he'd been born to do it. And here's what makes it even sweeter. George Strait himself couldn't have been prouder. In an interview with Billboard, he said, "It was the first time we had written together, and I'm very proud of that." Oh, doesn't that just make your heart melt a little? Like, that's a dad speaking from a place of love and genuine pride. And it wasn't just a sweet family moment, it was a game changer for George's career too. While so many of his peers were trying to keep up with the ever-changing sound of country music, George was out here keeping it real and fresh, with the help of his own son, no less. And oh man, we have to talk about Living for the Night. That song hit different. It climbed all the way to #2 on the Billboard Hot Country Songs chart and became the standout track from the album. The story behind it? So chill and unplanned. Just George, Bubba, and their buddy Dean Dillon, who, by the way, is basically a country songwriting god, hanging out and making music. George said they were just sitting around. He started strumming some chords, and then Bubba just started throwing out lyrics. Isn't that the kind of moment every musician dreams of? No pressure, no expectations, just pure creativity flowing in the moment. And somehow, they turned that casual jam session into a hit song that tugged at people's hearts. And let me tell you, the lyrics? Classic country heartbreak. It's about a guy who lives for the night, just waiting for the darkness so he can drown his pain in a drink. Sounds heavy, right? But there's something so honest about it, so raw and vulnerable. You can tell Bubba has a deep understanding of what makes a country song hit you right in the chest. And working with his dad and Dean Dillon, it's no wonder the song turned out to be so good. It was a perfect storm of talent, timing, and that special family connection. Now, with a debut like that, you'd think Bubba would have gone full steam ahead into a music career of his own, right? Maybe release a solo album, start touring, grab a few awards along the way? But nope, he didn't go that route at all. And honestly, that decision says so much about the kind of person he is. First of all, can you even imagine the pressure of having George Strait as your dad? Like, how do you even step out of that shadow? People would be comparing you to him every single step of the way, whether you wanted them to or not. And Bubba? He clearly didn't care about chasing fame or living in the spotlight. He found a way to stay close to the music without sacrificing his peace or his privacy. Instead, he kept it low-key, continuing to write with his dad here and there. He co-wrote songs on George's 2011 album, Here for a Good Time, and even popped up again on the 2019 album, Honky Tonk Time Machine. So it's not like he disappeared, he just chose to contribute in a quieter, more meaningful way. And honestly, that's kind of beautiful, don't you think? Some people chase the limelight, others chase what feels right. Plus, let's be real, Bubba's a family man. He lives in Texas with his wife and kids, and that kind of life doesn't exactly mesh well with the constant traveling and chaos of being a full-time musician. Touring? Late nights? Being away from your kids for weeks at a time? Yeah, no thanks. Bubba clearly knew what mattered to him, and he prioritized that over chasing the big, shiny spotlight. You've got to respect that. Not everyone has the guts to walk away from potential fame and just say, "Nah, I'm good." And get this, Dean Dillon, who knows a thing or two about spotting real talent, once said that Bubba has a real knack for writing. So the guy could have gone big if he wanted to. But instead, he chose balance. He chose family. He chose to contribute to his dad's legacy without trying to steal the show. And honestly, isn't that kind of refreshing in a world where everyone's trying to outshine everyone else? At the end of the day, Bubba Strait might not be a household name in the music world, but he's definitely left his mark in his own quiet way. He reminded everyone that talent can come from unexpected places, that creativity can run in the blood, and that sometimes the best kind of success is the kind that happens behind the scenes, between family, between generations, and with nothing but love and respect holding it all together. George Strait's son's life is taking a turn that no one saw coming. You'd think with a name like Strait, the road would be smooth. But lately, it's been anything but. Is it just bad luck, or is something deeper going on? Stay with us, because what's happening right now might be the shocking news about the Strait family. Bubba's life away from fame. You know, when people hear the name Strait, their minds instantly go to country music, cowboy hats, and sold-out arenas. But Bubba Strait? His story goes way beyond all that glitz and glam of the spotlight. While a lot of folks in his shoes might have chased the fame that came with having a legend like George Strait as a father, Bubba went in a completely different direction. And honestly, It's kind of beautiful. He didn't want to live his life under flashing lights and camera clicks. No. Instead, he chose a path rooted in love, privacy, family, and good old Texas values. And when you really sit with it, isn't that kind of refreshing? So let's talk about Bubba and Tamara, because their love story? It's not some red carpet, tabloid-fueled fairy tale. It's grounded, real. They tied the knot back in 2010 at the Hyatt Regency Hill Country Resort in San Antonio. Now, imagine that for a second. No over-the-top media circus, no wild paparazzi chasing them down. Just close family, dear friends, and two people saying, "I do," in a way that felt true to them. And isn't that the dream? To be able to celebrate love without feeling like you're putting on a show for the world. Fast forward a couple of years, and in 2012, they welcomed their first baby, little George Strait III, who they affectionately call Harvey. Then, in 2016, along came their daughter, Jillian Louise. And just like that, the Strait family circle grew a little bigger and a whole lot sweeter. But here's the part that really gets you. Bubba has been fiercely protective of his family. He doesn't plaster his kids all over Instagram. He doesn't go around selling stories to magazines. He's kept Harvey and Jillian tucked safely out of the public eye, just like his own parents did for him when he was growing up. And can we just pause for a moment and appreciate that? In a world where people broadcast their breakfast, Bubba's over here quietly raising his kids, just wanting them to be kids. Not the grandkids of a legend, not some social media spectacle, just real, regular children who get to grow up with normalcy. How rare is that? Bubba's whole thing is letting his kids figure out who they are. Whether Harvey ends up picking a guitar or Jillian takes off in a completely different direction, he wants them to explore life on their own terms, free from any heavy expectations attached to the Strait name. And that right there, that's some top-tier parenting. He's giving them space, freedom, and a whole lot of love, without dragging them into a spotlight they didn't ask for. Now, let's talk about where all this magic is happening. Good old Texas. The Straits live in the San Antonio area, keeping their roots firmly planted in the Lone Star State. They also spend a ton of time at their massive 8,000-acre ranch down in Pearsall, which is about an hour from San Antonio. And honestly, if you've ever driven through South Texas, you know how peaceful and grounding that land can be. For Bubba, the ranch isn't just some pretty getaway, it's the heart of his lifestyle. It's where the family gathers, where the kids run wild in the open air, where cattle roam, and where values like hard work, humility, and respect for nature are not just talked about. They're lived every single day. And Bubba? He's not just chilling out there watching sunsets, although I'm sure those are amazing too. He's right there in the thick of it, working the land, tending to the cattle, staying hands-on with the family business. That ranch is his peace, his purpose, and his way of staying connected to what really matters. It's not just a property. It's home. It's history. It's legacy. But not in the fame-hungry kind of way. It's the kind of legacy that's built from dirt roads, morning chores, and family dinners. What's also quietly remarkable is how much the Straits give back, but without making a big show out of it. They're not out here patting themselves on the back or turning charity into a photo op. They just do. Through the Jennifer Strait Memorial Foundation, which honors Bubba's sister, they continue to support causes close to their hearts. It's humble, it's heartfelt, and it's very much in line with the way the Strait family moves through the world, quietly, respectfully, and with real intention. And here's the thing that sums up Bubba best. He's never let that famous last name define who he is. He's carved out this identity that's not about being George Strait's son, but about being his own kind of man. Friends say he's just the most down-to-earth guy you'll ever meet. No airs, no ego, just a good man trying to be a good husband, a good dad, a good son, and a good steward of the land. George Strait once said, "He's just a regular guy. He doesn't want to be in the spotlight." And truly, that one sentence captures it all. Bubba could have had it all: the press, the Hollywood parties, the constant buzz. But he chose authenticity over attention, heart over headlines, and family over fame. Why fans are worried. It's actually kind of strange when you think about it. Bubba used to have this low-key but steady presence, especially in country music circles. He was never the kind of guy to chase the spotlight or build some huge online brand. I mean, he doesn't even have social media. Can you imagine that in this day and age? But he was still there, writing songs with his dad, showing up for performances now and then, giving fans those little moments of joy. But now, crickets. Like actual crickets. You scroll through social media, and there's just nothing. His wife, Tamara, will occasionally post a cute family photo on Instagram, maybe a picture of the kids or a beautiful shot of their ranch life in Texas. But those are super rare. And even then, Bubba's barely in the frame, if at all. It's like he's gently faded into the background of his own story, and people can't help but wonder, what happened? The last time he really popped up in a big way was back in 2019. Remember that heartfelt moment at the Houston Rodeo show? He performed God and Country Music alongside George, and honestly, it was one of those goosebumps moments for a lot of fans. There was something so powerful and emotional about that father and son duo sharing a stage, connecting through music like they always had. But after that, nothing. No new appearances, no fresh collaborations, no songwriting credits, just this quiet, lingering silence. And here's the kicker. Bubba had been so consistent before that. He and George had a strong creative partnership, writing songs together for 5 albums straight. We're talking about Twang in 2009, Here for a Good Time in 2011, Love is Everything in 2013, Cold Beer Conversation in 2015, and of course, Honky Tonk Time Machine in 2019. That's a solid decade of music making. And then, boom, 4 years of nothing. And naturally, when there's a silence that big, people start wondering, is he sick? Did something happen behind the scenes? Or maybe he just got tired of the music business. It's not like the Strait family is known for airing their laundry in public. Quite the opposite, actually. They've always been intensely private, very measured in what they share, and careful about how they do it. So, of course, fans respect that, but it doesn't stop the curiosity. You know how it is when someone you care about disappears from the group chat for too long? You want to give them space, but you also want to make sure they're okay. That's kind of what's going on here. Some people think Bubba might just be focusing on ranch life. I mean, he's always been more cowboy than celebrity, right? He's got a family to raise, land to take care of, and maybe, just maybe, that quiet rural life is exactly what he wants. Can you really blame him? Not everyone's built for red carpets and flashing cameras. And if we're being totally honest, there's something kind of beautiful about someone choosing peace and privacy over fame and noise. But still, it does make you wonder, will we ever see him on stage again? Will he pick up the pen and write another hit with his dad? Or is that chapter quietly closed? And let's not forget, this is the Strait family we're talking about. They've been in the game long enough to know how to control a narrative. If Bubba wanted to make a comeback or announce something big, they'd do it in their own time, in their own way. But right now, there's this strange, almost haunting quiet. And in the world of country music, where storytelling and tradition mean everything, that silence feels like a story in itself. So yeah, fans are waiting, watching, wondering. Not because they're nosy or entitled, but because Bubba mattered. He brought heart to those albums. He shared this unique bond with his dad that translated into some truly memorable music. And for the fans who've been riding with George Strait since day one, seeing Bubba disappear feels a little like losing a piece of that legacy. It's not about gossip, it's about connection. It's about missing someone who, even in his quiet way, made a mark. And now, we're all just hoping that wherever Bubba is, he's happy, he's healthy, and maybe, just maybe, he's working on something new behind the scenes. Because wouldn't that be something? What do you do when the world expects you to be just like your father, but you're not? That's the question George Strait's son seems to be struggling with. But Bubba Strait is finally speaking up. Don't go anywhere, because the ending to this story will leave you with the full answers. What Bubba has said recently. Bubba Strait is like one of those people you barely ever hear from, but when you do, it's just enough to leave you curious and wanting more. You know the type, right? Super low-key, doesn't chase the spotlight, doesn't try to make a big fuss, but somehow every little thing he does share feels kind of meaningful. It's like he's mastered the art of keeping to himself while still dropping just enough breadcrumbs for the rest of us to stay intrigued. And really, in a world where everyone's oversharing every 5 seconds on social media, isn't that kind of refreshing? Now here's the thing, if you're hoping to find a bunch of interviews or press junkets with Bubba chatting it up, you might want to sit down for this one. He's not doing that, like, at all. Public statements? Practically non-existent. It's like he took one look at the chaos that comes with fame and said, yeah, no thanks. And honestly, can you blame him? So when he does make an appearance, it feels like a big deal. Like that time in 2023, when he showed up at the CMA Lifetime Achievement Award ceremony with his wife Tamara and their 2 kids, Harvey and Jillian. That was a rare moment, a really sweet one too. They were all there to support his dad, George Strait, which already tells you everything you need to know about where his priorities lie. And true to form, Bubba didn't make a speech or grab a mic. He was just there, quiet, respectful, and present. Isn't there something kind of beautiful about that? But here's where it gets interesting. Even though he's not giving long-winded interviews or posting daily updates, Bubba's not exactly silent either. He just speaks through his art. His music, his songwriting, especially, is where he really opens up. Someone once said, Bubba's Junior songs often reflect the values and themes that define the Strait family: love, resilience, and authenticity. And I mean, spot on, right? You can hear the heart in his lyrics. You can tell that he's not just putting words together for the sake of a catchy tune. He's pouring real-life stuff into those lines. It's almost like his songs are a sneak peek into what matters most to him, without him ever needing to spell it out. And then, every now and then, we get these rare quotes that feel like little windows into his soul. Like that moment when he got really honest about marriage and parenting. He once said, "Marriage is the hardest job right before parenting I have ever had. It's not always easy." And you read that and just go, yes, exactly. Because that's the truth, right? It's not easy, even when it's good. But what really hits you is how much love and respect he has for his wife. You know what else stands out? His approach to fatherhood. It's crystal clear that being a dad is a huge part of who he is. He's not one of those people who sees parenting as something on the side, like a side quest, while they chase their real goals. For Bubba, fatherhood is the main thing. He seems to live by his dad's famous line, "Daddies don't just love their children every now and then. It's a love without end." That line clearly stuck with him, And honestly, isn't that kind of devotion what we all hope for in a parent? Someone who makes you feel like you're not just part of their life. You are their life. And sure, people love to speculate about what he's doing next. Is there new music coming? Is he performing again? What's on the horizon for him? And while Bubba himself hasn't exactly sat down and laid out a 5-year plan for the public, there have been whispers. One insider said he still loves writing songs with his dad and doesn't plan on stopping anytime soon. Another said he's continuing to put out music and doing some performances here and there. But again, no big announcements, no flashy promotions, just quietly doing what he loves on his own terms. Isn't that kind of goals, though? Just living life, doing your thing, keeping your peace. When it all comes down to it, Bubba Strait seems like the kind of man who doesn't need to be the loudest voice in the room to make an impact. He values privacy, cherishes his family, and lets his work speak for him. And somehow, those brief little glimpses he does give us, they might just be all we ever need to really understand what he's about. Because let's be real, sometimes the quietest people have the most profound things to say. They just say it in their own way. And isn't that kind of amazing? With this, we have come to the end of this video. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, do well to like, comment, and subscribe for more content. To enjoy more thrilling stories, click now on the following video that pops up on your screen.